Hi everyone, welcome back to Creatively Crafted Life. This is Melanie and today we are doing more page kits or paper kits, whatever you want to call them. And we are focusing on Dear Lizzy. I have 3 of her paper pads, Saturday, Happy Place, and Documentary, and I am ashamed to admit that I have never used any of the paper from these paper pads. Hence, tearing them apart and putting them into a format that I know I am more likely to use. So, let's get started. Okay, so Saturday. Started with this multi-floral, fairly small floral with coral, yellow, and turquoise. I threw in this navy blue multi-floral again. If you've watched any of my other videos, you know it's all about the contrast. And then I also threw in this geometric. I'm not sure if I love this pattern necessarily with this, but I'm challenging myself. That's another theme that I've been doing throughout this series, is trying to challenge myself in using papers in different ways. I threw in this cut apart just to make things more interesting. For the second layout, I have this cut apart. I threw in the taxi cabs mainly because of the cut apart. And I thought the taxi cabs kind of went with the houses, which is why I combined those two. I'm thinking travel layout. This little cross pattern, I guess, if you want to call it that. It's mostly gray, but it does have sporadic colors in there. And that is it for this paper kit. And that is it for the paper kits at all. And I think this is why I have never used the paper pads. I just really struggled with trying to combine these papers into something that would work. So if you look at the entire collection here, the scale's almost all the same, and I'm going to go on and on and on and on about this. I know you're probably saying, scale, scale, scale. It makes a difference, and almost everything is multicolored. So I just find that very hard to combine things together when they're the same size and the same color. And so that's why I only got 2 page kits out of it. So what does that mean? That means the rest of these, the rest of this paper pad is going into my regular stash. Now the cut aparts, I will probably either cut them apart and put them in with my Project Life cards or pocket cards, or if I really don't like them, I will just get rid of them. So that's the first one. That went fast. Okay, let's talk Happy Place. I have this cut apart with the frames, which I combined with the watermelons, and this painted stripe. This is a really summer fun kind of collection. And then I also threw in this cut apart, mainly because it had the watermelons, so I just thought they went together. So that's the first page kit. For the second kit, I chose this pink floral with this black and white stripe. And again, I usually use stripes going against the stripes so that you get the stripe pattern versus going this way. But you could do either. I just usually go that way. And that's it. That's all I am doing for this kit, keeping it very simple. For this one, I am taking the cameras. I will probably not use the camera paper as paper. I will probably trim the cameras out and use them as embellishments. So in theory, I could cut this into smaller sections and store it with multiple page kits, but for now, I'm just leaving them as one. If I finish a layout with this and decide to move this into another one, I will. I will store these kits close together so that if I do decide to do that, it will be very easy to add to one of the other kits. I have this cactus paper as well as this green word that I thought went together well. So there's that. And then I also threw in this striped paper. This would be a great background, and then throw a couple of these in as borders or mats, and then a few of these for embellishments, and you can call it done. I chose this tropical paper as my inspiration for the next kit, and because of the tropical feel, I thought it went well with this piece that looks like water to me. There's beach balls and swimsuits, so I thought that just went well. And then the words with the green. And then I also threw in this cut apart. And that is all I made out of this kit. I just had a really hard time combining the different patterns to make a page kit. And really, it's about knowing your style and what you like. And in this case, even though I like a lot of these patterns, and I think a lot of them are very usable, I just couldn't get them to work for me. And so there's no point keeping them in a paper pad or putting them into page kits if I'm not going to use them that way. I mean, there's challenging yourself, and then there's challenging yourself. And I'm not quite ready for the challenge yet, right? So these are going to go in my stash. Okay, so the last paper pad is documentary. And this was interesting. This paper pad, I've struggled with it. I don't have a problem with combining cream and white. I think it can look really great. But it almost felt like this collection had two very different mood and feels. And one was very sharp and bright, and then there was this muted distressed. And I just struggled to get them to work. Again, I like the patterns. I just couldn't get them to work as much as I would have liked to. So I started this first one off with this multicolored circles, which I will probably cut out, so punch out and use them as embellishments. It is not likely I will use this as a page on its own, which is why I paired it with this multicolored small floral. And then that I combined with a very bold large stripe. So you can see, again, we're talking scale. This is small, this is large. And then I threw in this black and white very loose chevron, just probably for a layering piece more than anything else. So if you think about it like this, just layer it on top of each other. I don't necessarily care for this so close together, but I can make it work. I think if I added some sort of stitching or something like that would help break that pattern up, and I could make it work. So that is the first kit. So this is what I'm telling you about, very different mood and feel. This, even though it has similar colors, to me doesn't look like it goes with this. Does that make sense? And even look at the florals. This, completely different feeling than this. Really, it felt like there's two collections in here. So for this multi-floral, I combined it with this loose grid. And the only reason why, even though this is quite white, and I probably would like something a little more dark, the reason why I think this still works is because this is very, very bold. The lines are super thick and impactful, and I would probably do something like along that line. I'm not sure, but I'm thinking that's what I would probably do, or use it as a mat around the edge. I threw in this calendar page because I thought this would actually make a great background. Or of course you could cut it apart and use the relevant month if you were so inclined. This particular floral, again, to go back and just to make my point, because that's what I'm doing here, just make my point that these feel like two different collections. Like, these don't look like they belong. This is a much more formal floral. This is a very fanciful, you know, loose. Anyways, it is what it is. I took this one and combined it with this funky chevron. Again, I would probably use it more as a stripe, or I could use it as a chevron like that, but I probably wouldn't use this in its entirety. Or the other thing I would possibly do is use it for a border. Not necessarily with this as the base, but you know what I mean. And that's it, just those two pieces together. For this one, I took the typewriter paper. I probably will end up cutting out the typewriters. Again, that's where my first instinct is, but you never know. I have this very watercolor background. This will likely be the base of my layout. I combined that with this kind of funky painted splatters. I don't know what you want to call it. So if you take the three together, is this my favorite combination? Not really. I think these two work. And again, if I cut this out, I think I can make it work. But it is what it is. So I like the pages, just hard to make it into a kit, as I say yet again. Here's that pretty floral again. This time I combined it with that bold stripe. And I'm okay with this, even though it is still different. This is very distressed and older, and this is a little bit brighter and more modern, or whatever you want to call it. But here's how I look at it. This kind of color here is in here. This is in here. So the colors match pretty well. This to me now doesn't read as an off-white. It reads as a peachy color. And even though this is a little bit distressed, I can make this distressed if I want to match it up. Or maybe I just want to be eclectic and have a little bit of both. For embellishments, I threw in another one of those circle pages. And then just to bring it back, I threw in this black with the words of the week. So if that doesn't work for me, I could do something like this, or we could maybe matte this, add this as a layer, and this is embellishments. Here's that floral again. I combined it with these coral and red bow ties, I guess, if you want to call it. I threw in this yellow, and again, this is distressed, right? To me, this actually really does have a very different feel than this particular page. It's just the texture of it, etc. I know people can do it really well. I struggle with it, but I am going to challenge myself to mix. And then I threw another one of those calendars in for the finish. And that is all the kits that I made. So I have a bunch of papers that are left over, some that I never used, like these windows, this polka dot. Here's one, I think this is absolutely beautiful. Couldn't get it to work. I just, the way it worked with the everything else, it just seemed off. So it's going in my stash. I still like it, but it just needs different things to work well. So I'm sure I have something in my stash that will work. So that, my friends, are the 3 paper pads from Dear Lizzy. I'd love to know if you have any experience working with these paper pads and how you made them work. Did you use them as they are in the pad as part of a collection, or did you find yourself pulling in other stuff from your stash? Or maybe you're like me and have never touched them. Let me know. I'd love to hear. Until next time, happy crafting.